First thing on our agenda for tonight is to approve the October 16th. I gave you permission to the whole drive, but then it looked like you couldn't open individual things.
Yeah.
So I gave you permission to individual things.
I did not check those individual things.
Okay.
That was weird, because I could see the rest of the drive.
These are the minutes in case you didn't get those.
Oh, I did see this.
Make a motion to approve the October 2025 minutes.
Did you want to mention that change you asked about first before we?
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
Very
with,
minor.
with one minor change on top of second page. Next to the little first paragraph, next to last line, it said, Chris confirmed that Sky will send the project request form. I think it's either supposed to say Josh confirmed or Chris asked if Sky would send the project request to the select board. I can't remember which one, but either one's fine with me.
I just made that
I'm
change.
not sure I was in a position to be able to confirm Sky was gonna do that, but I'm okay saying I asked if Sky would do it. Yeah.
Okay, I made that change.
I did have an item on here too, under the updates. I don't think we've talked, since you went to the October 16th meeting. Have we? Cause no, our last meeting was
the 6th of October.
trimming, but you went on the 16th to the select board meeting.
I did.
Everything went fine?
Well, are we done with the minutes?
Well, it's part of the minutes, but yeah, I can ask. Is that an item that's in there? I don't think we had that in there.
I had it on our agenda next.
Oh, I see that. Okay, I retract that. So my motion with the one edit stands.
Okay. I don't think our particular system, the steps we take matter, but
Okay, with that change to the minutes, I would second approval.
It was not there. That's the one I just spaced.
that's all you actually.
Yeah.
You weren't at that meeting?
No. So I went to the
Oh, yeah,
select
no, you-
board instead. I was like, sorry.
Correct.
I was sitting at home in Topsham.
All right. So we fixed that, we passed the minutes, next thing. So our MEAC membership, is that actually paid now?
I believe so.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
got,
got confirmation from Sky. that-
I know Sky sent it, yes, yep, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes. I can confirm. Took me a second, but yes.
Audie and I went to the conference. Let's see here. Mostly they were talking about, like the keynote speakers were about trail maintenance and conservation trails and planning for
It
trails.
was Doug Bat, oh, I got my notes, I'm ready.
Good. I was
Doug
fine.
Bat from, Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry. He's the Land and Water Conservation Fund and the Maine Trails Program. That's what he was going over. Talked a lot about, how to work the Maine Trails Program and how to use in-kind match of volunteers and
Yeah, that was nice. Thinking about not having to have funds for the match requirement for the grants, but leveraging our volunteer time to sort of put a monetary estimate on it in order to determine
As a match.
as a match.
Yep,
Nice.
because it's, and there's some calculator out there, which I didn't write down, but it's $32 per hour for Maine is the volunteer
Great.
match amount that you can use. And so they went through that.
Non-skilled labor value of $32 per hour.
And that was interesting. And then
I
I
thought
didn't-
if we wanted to do anything with accessibility of any trails, Because we were talking about, a little bit about, access of folks to, in the natural areas, plan update access of all people in town to the natural areas. If we wanted to include any kind of updates to trails that would include, accessibility or a paved section of trail or a wheelchair accessible parking or something like that, we could maybe think about a grant. From Maine. That seemed to be maybe the most relevant.
Yeah, they do trails, trailheads, kiosks, parking lots, trailside amenities, support facilities, accessibility improvements, land acquisition, river trail put-ins and takes outs. But they do not, it has to meet the straight face test, that's a capital improvement for use and enjoyment of the trail, but they do not cover maintenance of trail or buying equipment.
And what are the source of funds, if through
The Maine Trails Program.
main trails?
It's through the Bureau of Parks and Lands under DACF,
Oh. Okay.
which full disclosure is the agency, the department I work for, so.
Oh, yes.
DACF, so.
So Doug was the keynote speaker, and then there was also a presentation by Jed Talbot, who works for a professional trail builders association. And he was talking more about specific projects that he had worked on.
OPB Trail Works out of Brunswick. And they were talking about how prioritizing design solutions over construction solutions. So the idea of building longer, more better suited trails versus using construction or engineered solutions. So locate trails for longevity, using grade and versus ease of construction. And there is a lot of information on the Professional Trail Builders Association.
But
They were talking about it had been open source, but it might be that you had to be a member. They weren't sure.
and then Conservation Commissions shared like some updates about what they were working on or questions or successes from the past years.
I liked the what was it? Can't remember which town it was, but they just did like an invasive species table at their town hall. Like they just had kind of like they just had a table and they had a little bulletin board and they picked some invasives and they were in bases. So anybody walking in could be like, are these in your yard? Get rid of them. I thought that was kind of like, yeah, I was like, oh, we could do that. That's something we could do.
Maybe also as a way to sort of draw some attention to our species material at the transfer station. Have some examples up or piles of different species so people can identify them and remove them from their yards.
And then the Bremen, well, this is from 2023, but they had it out. The Bremen Conservation Commission did a little town map with all their public lands in Bremen, not Bremen, Bremen. So that was interesting. Yeah. And then is it no, it wasn't Scarborough. Somebody was, oh, you left. Was Westbrook, I think, was talking about they were really big on bike lanes, adding bike lanes, and they were taking their select boards on bike rides. And they're doing a whole big push to have bike friendly. I think it was Westbrook. But I could be wrong. So don't quote me. It was either somewhere in, and maybe it was Wyndham, I can't remember, it was somewhere near Portland. And then there was some people who some groups have been working. Trying to leverage buying some large properties for the town. That was interesting. I didn't take good notes.
Also,
What
so,
town?
and
It was like in the Blue Hill area. I don't know.
Oh.
I did not take
Oh,
notes
sure.
on their, just kind of remember off the top of my head.
Sacco's working on their open space ordinances, which I thought might be useful, as we work on our natural areas plan update. And in case folks don't know, on the Parks and Rec webpage, there's a guide to Topsom trails. But the map that it links to is just to a Southern Maine Trail map, and then there's also a guide to paddling Topsom's waterways. And if you click on, it has information about the Andro, the Cat Vance, and the Muddy, but mostly just directions to the boat launches.
That's on our page.
That's on our Parks and Rec town page. So when you brought up the map, I was thinking about the fact that people might not know that it's out there, but it's not like a big printable map. It's just some information about accessing trails, paddling trails and.
Everybody talk about town having a GIS viewer, like Brunswick has and some other communities.
That's something that we're working on. We do have a,
I think the town does have one.
yeah, we do have a GIS viewer. It doesn't have a ton of layers on
I was
it
gonna
right
say,
now.
not a lot of layers.
Yeah, but there is, we are looking into getting one that's more developed, that has more layers. That's in process.
Hey, I was just thinking about the town owned land piece or conservation parcels having
Mm,
that or GIS. I mean, that little handout map is cool for as well, but. It's a National Trail Builder, Professional Trail Builders Association. It's a pretty big deal. They have a conference in Boise, Idaho, and then they have their Oceania conference in Tasmania.
Mhm.
This is like a pretty big,
International.
pretty international thing.
Yeah, they had, like you said, there had been a lot of, information available. www.trailbuilders.org.
And Jeb was talking about work that he had done in Maine and the US and also a field, so it sounds like they have projects all over the world.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then I grabbed the Cumberland Conservation Commission handout. Something interesting they do is they planted a community orchard. They have a community orchard subcommittee. And they have over 50 fruit trees. They all started in 2023. Yeah, that's kind of. Cool.
So thanks to Audie for going and.
Oh, I told them, and our update was that we're working towards updating our natural areas plan. I asked if anybody had any funding ideas. No one gave me any suggestion. I say we supported the pollinator walk in the transfer station. And then told them that to celebrate, we had a pollinator talk at our public library. That we continue to do invasive control at our Head of Tide Park. And then that we were looking at the We were interested, and then I also said we were interested in what tree committees do. Um. Oh, that was, but nobody, I didn't talk to anybody after I asked. Loaded those couple things, no one.
Any questions about that or? Thoughts? Cool. And then the last thing under budget updates was whether we had moved forward with any of our questions about recognition for Victor. Did you look into like plaques or?
It's on my work phone, I have. They're about $100 for the ones that that we had used for, our, celebrating like, or thanking people for their service. There's also a lot of other ones, because I just had to do a retirement gift. There's a ton, so basically, we need to know if.
What our budget is.
Yeah, you can go from as simple as a tree ring with thank you for your years of service and thank you and blah, blah, blah. To like these different ones with wood and like a metal faceplate under like a little tree, stylized tree. They're really pretty, but that's more like $100. And then there's just wooden plaques with like, thank you for your service. So there's a big variety.
So you send us there's some options.
I'm gonna send you
that we
the,
can
yeah,
kind of vote on
yes.
top three or something and.
Josh, were you able to find when Victor started?
No, I did not find that. I can send you an email when I'll shoot you an email on that.
Thank you. All right, in progress. Maybe at the end, people can just tell me if they would wish to contribute, how much they wish to contribute, and then we'll have a budget. Including our $25 from last year that we haven't spent yet. All right. We submitted, so the next item on our agenda is the natural areas plan update. We submitted our project request form to Sky. We had talked about her not going to the select board to submit it until after the election because it didn't make any sense to submit it to the old board when the new board would be taking over. So I don't know if you have any updates on when that might get on the agenda or.
So planning is good. I think Sky might have sent an email. She had two tiny little questions, but aside from that, planning is good to go. We just need to have we just need to do a quick pass by with Parks and Rec. And we're really aiming to get it on the second select board meeting for December. So that's the goal. That's tentative. Depending on if Parks and Rec has any additional like any big red flags, which I don't foresee. So that's the tentative goal. It's the second meeting in December. So Shayna, I'll let you know.
You don't need anything from us. You've got everything you guys need from us.
Yeah, because you guys have, I mean, the one that we have is signed.
Okay.
Has already signed it. So
Yeah.
The
All right.
first and third Thursday, so that would be the 18th.
yes.
Is it better when committee members come? Because it make them, or do they have to, are they approving? They're approving.
Yeah, no, I think that it would be helpful for at least one representative to be there. Typically, the way that it works with the select board is they'll have an item and they'll have somebody come to talk about the item. Kind of explain what it is they'd like to do, what the project would entail. Again, tentatively for the second week in December, if you guys would prefer to push it back to January, we could do that, and again, I'm not. It's not set for the second week of December, that's just like, could go that day, potentially.
Well, let us know.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
See if anyone's available.
Yep.
I think I could go that day if we,
If that one works out, we should be good for that day, okay. And again, I mean, I'll let you know, and if I let you guys know and something changes, then that's fine. Then just go to the next select board dates. It's fine.
thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody have any grant research updates?
I think we're tapped out on the grant research. We talked about it at 2 previous meetings, I think. The
Well,
last October meeting and then
Yeah.
another meeting.
I was going to work on a spreadsheet with the existing options and I didn't get. to.
Okay. We'll get snowed in, maybe you'll have my fun.
Sadly, when you get snowed in, that still means you need to work. It's just from home.
All right, so I had sort of we had given ourselves homework for this meeting to go over the recording from the May 5th Conservation Commission meeting, which was on the town YouTube's page where the Bowdoin students were introducing the maps that they had made, and also to look through the original natural areas plan. I thought maybe what could be useful is thinking about first, like, does anybody have any questions or things you want to talk about after that review? And then we could look at the table of contents of the original and think about what we would need to update in that. Kind of narrow bit on the kind of RFP we would need to write. And what areas of the natural areas plan we need to gather data for and update. Does that sound like a good way to move forward? So when folks reviewed the natural areas plan or the Bowdoin student maps, anybody have any questions or anything that you want to bring up to start?
It's kind of interesting, I was kind of looking through it, and I was just wondering, if you guys are thinking of doing like a clean slate, totally new plan, or kind of taking this one and then like finding parts and pieces of it that need to be updated and fixing those parts and pieces. Cause that's a.
B. 2, the last one you mentioned.
So I'm like, yeah, I was looking, there's a lot here in this original plan.
Yeah.
No, that's too much of an undertaking to, I think, redo that. I would.
And that already passed for town meeting, so like if we totally rewrote it, I feel like that might be a little bit harder to pass again than just making some updates that need to be updated.
Absolutely. And that's related to my question. I'll put you on the spot, Chris, but you were associated with this heavily at the beginning. Are there any glaring omissions, anything that's really wrong with this plan other than needing an update that you see? Looking at this?
No, I mean, I guess we should, in order to be thorough, is with all the new data that was gathered by the Bowdoin students, does that change our opinion or help drive home any points more so now than 15 years ago? And then I think the biggest thing is coming up with conservation strategies, ordinances that work. And I'm not saying what we came up with doesn't work, but it's not being used. So things that will be viewed by property owners, I guess, as. So that would be it, and I think. Getting a consultant involved, we need to. We need to think about what's their goal, that, I guess, good point is, Shannon, is what are they going to do for us? Are we issuing? We've got the maps that Bowdoin done. Are we issuing new maps? If so, we need someone with GIS capabilities to be able to do that. I don't think we need an outside consultant to tell us, if they're just GIS focused, to tell us what we need in Topsom. But we've talked about having a consultant, and we've put forward 50,000 or whatever we put in there to do some work on that. I think it's probably worthwhile giving people people may be surprised by what changes have happened, at least with development over the past 15 years. I don't know that wetlands haven't necessarily gone away or created, but so. But no, I would not vote for redoing the whole plan. It's probably worthwhile. Anything that's needs to be updated, and changing our focus of the ordinance recommendations.
That's what I took away from my read, is that we had the opportunity to address change since 2010. And use that as a way to motivate the recommendations if there are changes in the direction we're not happy to see.
Right.
You know, if there've been development and, loss of important areas.
Yep.
And to really just use the data to drive the recommendations.
One of the things that, I mean, you could look at the matrices that we did based on not having public input, just raw data. And what are some of the common themes, and then we factored in, people's voting from meetings and stuff. That required a lot of work, is taking those local values, and I think that's obviously important to do, but that takes some time and effort, and taking local values and applying those to the data and seeing how that changes the data. And there's all those figures and stuff that are in the original NAP. I guess the question would be, how do we want to handle that? We definitely need to have some public input as part of this plan. And maybe that's where the consultant comes in, but it's really a couple meetings, because you need to let people know what we're doing. Ask them the right questions about what their values are and what's important to them. Then apply that to the data, then present that revised information to people, get more comments. And that's what took such a long time with, I mean, there's a lot of time involved with a consultant developing that. And then it seemed like just as much time was spent. That was like a 4-year process. And it seems like half of it was just, getting the public input, which is very important to do. Want the local values to be put in there, but it does take effort. So I think
with maps being available digitally and being able to get comments digitally, we can synthesize some of that data a little bit more quickly. Now, if not everything has to be paper maps in person.
Yeah.
So that's a benefit, I think.
Yeah, very well, exactly. And that's what it was back then. Do we? So in that regard, I mean, having a consultant available almost immediately to be able to synthesize, get some of those maps. And I'm not a GIS person, but what does it take to get them in a format that they can be put forth and maybe show a step further from what Bowden did to here's where it was, here's where it is now, and pick some of the most important ones to present. Some of the other ones maybe just fall off to the side, and then try to get some of that public input. Because while all that's happening, we could be thinking about what failed last time, what are the regulations, what needs to change.
Yeah.
With I think we can kind of assume maybe where we perhaps need to go. Obviously, we'll verify that with the maps and local input, but yeah, no, I was seeing an addendum to this plan.
Agreed. But there are things that maybe weren't included or more of a consideration now than 15 years ago, like thinking about climate change and Maine's map to climate resiliency. And,
Yep. Absolutely.
Obviously, the development and conservation area changes that have happened in the town will update, but really thinking about, I think for me, the consultant can do the mapping quick based on the data we've already collected with the Bowden students. Can currently get some public input while we're thinking about some ordinance changes or outreach to developers or things that we can do to try to improve the use of the recommendations that we have in the plan, and then what was the other thing? thinking about. Kind of the housing development crunch that we have in town. Balancing that with so open space ordinances, or maybe like. Requirements of open space plans, or something that. Maybe moves that goal forward. And maybe the consultant can help us with some successes in other places, so.
Yeah,
Um. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, but like, I don't think that any of the updates to the maps would be. Um. Like a point of contention in the town, like all that's kind of makes sense.
So data.
Yeah, but any changes that we would put forward for like recommendations for ordinance changes or anything, like that's what would have to be. Have town buy-in, and
Mm.
maybe that part of the addendum would be the most. The place for the most outreach and education and like input, so that when the addendum goes to town meeting, people understand.
Is addendum the right word? Cause it wouldn't be an addendum, right? It would be a revision.
Amendment or something.
It would be in like, yeah, because it's,
Yeah.
you're taking, if we're doing the second thing. You suggested, then it's taking what we're building upon it, but it's not. Necessarily just leaving it as is, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could almost have it could talk about each one of the sections that was here originally. We did an exercise, I mentioned this before, where we did areas of special interest to people in town. We're probably not gonna touch that this time around. Maybe we can, but that's another meeting and discussions of, what's important in Topsham to people, the big oak out on the corner of Pleasant Point Road, and Micho's Market. I mean, there was just a whole bunch of different, it's like we had a charrette meeting where people just put little Post-its up and stuff like that. We might just say, this was not revisited as part of this plan. And that's the decision we make. Should we revisit that as part of this plan? Should we say 15 years later, what are now, because lots changed in 15 years. Do we want to understand what's important? Is it really that important to what we're doing at Topsham Conservation Commission, which the big thing was developing the focus areas.
Yeah.
The areas in town, which all these layers of information, waterfowl, wading bird habitat, wetlands, undeveloped blocks, all these things overlaid. And then we modified that with some of the input from people and came up with these, amoeba polygons of without trying to draw lines around people's parcels. And we just said, okay, this area out here in the northwest part is important, this area over here. So that was the big thing, is where does this, right now, I think our ordinances apply to the R3 zone. They don't necessarily apply to some focus area, because that would be, where do you draw the boundary? Why is my property in, but mine isn't, so. But I think getting a consultant on board to do some of the mapping stuff is gonna be very helpful sooner rather than later, because a lot is driven from that.
Certainly.
So should the focus be developed? Obviously, developing the RFP, we need to ask them. Tell them what they're gonna be doing, because they're gonna have to put a price to it.
I mean, we have a draft RFP already. I think the biggest thing is, we don't have any money, we can't hire anyone.
True, and that's not gonna be, the earliest that would be Maytown meeting, right?
Yeah, and then the money wouldn't become available until July. Yeah,
Okay, so we could do some stuff between now and then.
yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking before moving the consultant, we'd want to have our own really good idea of we've gone through the original natural areas plan. And as a committee, we've marked it up, and here are the sections and areas that as a team, we know that we want to update. And then at that point, when we loop in the consultant, then we can kind of give them the rundown, here are these sections, these are the things that we're going to update, and then we're going to need some graphics and materials so that we can, and here are the questions that we've established that we want, to post to the public, and the advice that we want from them. But that front chunk, I feel like that front chunk of really establishing exactly which parts of the natural areas plan need to be updated is like, that's gonna take, I mean, you know, it's pretty. It's got some stuff to it, so I figured that that'll take us a few meetings to get through and work out exactly, where the consultant is gonna jump in.
I mean, and looking at the table of contents, I mean, I can see. Most of, you know, some work needs to be done on most of the sections that are listed there. If nothing else, than to comment on the original 2010 natural areas plan, you know, discussed community values. Whether we decide to update those or not, but I think there needs to be, and obviously we ought to have a vision and goals and I guess that's listed twice, vision and goals again on how I printed it, but we're gonna have inventory maps, some level of analysis, maybe an updating of focus areas. I mean, existing regulations, obviously that's gonna change because they are what they are now, and what are we gonna move them to? So I can see some level of updating, but I don't think you need to regurgitate everything that's there, but we might be, what are we calling it? Is it a revision or is it an amendment?
It's an update.
An update is gonna be, you know, talking probably about each of those items at some reduced level from 10, 15 years ago. I mean, we either all gonna get together on a Saturday and go through this thing, or every meeting, we need to, you know,
So,
which is what we're doing now, carve out some time.
I would do better. I'm not a planner, so this is so like outside of my realm that if I try to do it on my own, I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like my permitting brain is like, nebulous ideas, great. So I would say I would vote to do it as a group.
I think we have to.
Yeah, for sure.
I just want to say that before I have it.
I think we would probably just choose sections, right? So for the next few meetings, we would go, you know, have read the section ahead of time and then go through and talk about. how
I'd
to
like, I
revise
mean,
it.
I'd honestly like to pull it up on the screen. I would function better that way. To actually, I mean, that doesn't mean we wouldn't read it ahead of time and be
Right.
familiar with it. But I think it would be good to pull it up on the that set, you know, go through as many as we can in a half an hour, 45-minute block.
Mhm.
Decide, no, we're not touching this section, or yes, we are, or what does a consultant need to do to help us with this one section? It's gonna just take time. We're not gonna do it in 1 or 3 meetings. It's gonna take probably between now and July.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I think that's the best way we're gonna,
and that's how.
or best way I'm gonna function anyway.
Yeah, and that's kind of how the like recode, at the point that recode is in right now, like. It's being run through the planning board, like a section at a time, like, we're gonna go through, like, here's this portion, this is what we're gonna discuss this time around. You know, you already have your schedule out, so like, you know, this meeting, we're gonna do. I don't know, this chapter, this meeting, we're gonna do that chapter. And then, you know, just everyone go through like these paragraphs, we need to rework that, these paragraphs, fine, etc. I think I think that we could probably have a pretty like abstract. General timeline for between, you know, now and maybe July. Like, what do we have ready for the consultants? Should we be approved for them?
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're gonna issue an RFP until the money is available, right? Right. We're gonna wait until at least the May town meeting to know it's gonna be available before we even think about issuing an RFP, so.
So, I mean, that would give us 4 months of meeting time where we could just. Split up the sections into 4 and.
Yeah.
Try to tackle them each.
Yeah.
Month for the next couple of months. Because I think. You know, editing our community values. To add that to our, like, in the end, we'll have to update our matrix of important natural areas, high quality natural areas based on the updated data and updated town community input, right? So if we can start just going through each section and seeing where we have gaps or what we need to change, then presumably in some way, we will get money through a grant or through the town or both, then we can have gone through the sections and really use the consultant efficiently to help us with public outreach, to update the maps, get some public input and update our matrix. So. That seems like a good plan. I mean, I was thinking about like what table of contents items we need to revise or include in the new one, and I think we're probably gonna keep a pretty similar table of contents and then just update sections as we go.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, obviously, there's new things like we mentioned, the climate change under the maps, which we didn't have 15 years ago, so there's gonna be things we add. But I'm pretty sure we obsessed over this table of contents for a long period of time, 15 years ago, so. I mean, if anyone has any other ideas, I think the obviously the most important part of this is the end and what we recommend. It's something that can be approvable, the strict recommendations and strategies. And then there's obviously the implementation part of it. Once we write the plan is just a plan. Then it's up to the planners over here to develop ordinance changes that would come before us again saying, we're gonna change this to this, and that's once the plan gets approved, right? I mean, that's what RICO,
Yeah,
CPIC is doing right now with the comp plan.
comprehensive plan. I mean, and that's what we use when we do our updates. What does the plan say? That's it.
So I would,
So
go ahead.
I was just gonna ask if people have other ideas of things when reading through this natural areas plan, the original one, of things that we know that we'll need to add that aren't already included. So we know that climate change and climate resiliency is one of them. Thinking about sort of the equity of accessibility of natural areas in the town and their distribution. What other things came?
What was
to
the one
mind?
you just mentioned? Sorry.
That the distribution of natural areas and open
Okay.
space in town and accessibility for everybody. Were there other things that come to mind that weren't included 15 years ago that we need to be thinking about including and new sections?
I mean, I think you did, the one you hit on earlier was the housing,
Mhm.
demand on housing and changes in, these assess ADU. Statewide law that allows 8 accessory dwelling units and how that factors into things.
Municipality. It's for municipalities only, it's not statewide. Just clarifying,
Okay.
just clarifying.
But I think housing is gonna be a pretty significant difference because, in much the same way that like, forestry and fisheries are like, they're like conservation geared now, right? Like you can do forestry in a way that helps to conserve land.
Yeah.
Same sort of thing with housing, like now, unlike 15 years ago, we know that we have a huge housing problem. And so like how can we like use, whereas I think looking back at the goals here, it was more just like, because it wasn't a big issue then, it was just kind of like Arthur, let's just make sure that it's, keep the density very, very low. And now it's like, maybe are there ways that we can do housing in a way that also helps to preserve green spaces, which we know we can do with different types of like how we do cluster and whatnot. But yeah, that's I think that's definitely like wrapping into housing, like sustainable housing or green, something like that.
And I think anything, looking back at what we were thinking 15 years ago, I remember us talking a lot about, aside of a land trust or the town purchasing land to conserve it, what other mechanisms are there to keep land from being carved out in the focus areas that are important for what have you? And we talked about, supporting working farms and forests and, strategies to, and I don't remember all the details of what we recommended, but Um. You know, tree farms and all that sort of stuff. I think we have to realize, is that realistic in a town like Thompson? Is that going to, yeah, there's Wally Farm, you know, they've conserved a bunch of land and farm it and stuff like that. That's great. You know, are we gonna be able to, with land prices the way they are today, that people are gonna be able to afford to buy, 50 acres to farm or for a woodlot in Thompson and conserve it, and help them do that. I mean, there's already tree growth tax laws in the state that help people maintain land and not have to pay full value on it. Or do we have to be more realistic about what Thompson is or what it's become or what it will become? And talk about different strategies then, because that just may not work. I mean, property values have tripled since 2010 probably. So, may not be realistic. So that there's probably some, I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about it, but there's gonna have to be some tweaks, I think, around that. It's realizations that just may not be possible in Thompson. That may be further north.
A lot of like conservation in this like social economic climate is like becoming more efficient in smaller spaces, right? Like, and that includes farming and housing, and in a way it makes like activity more dense so that you can continue the same economic output or maintain affordability while maintaining large areas of land still, right? It's like that's kind of where we're
Yeah,
we're going.
that's a good point. Yep. And I'm not saying we give up on those ideas, but I think there's probably 15 years later, what's reality, or what could be successful or hopefully successful.
And I think with recode, pretty much focusing on R1 areas, right?
Yeah, and even then it's really just like the center, even more so than just R1. It's like village, it's like middle village, lower village, village center. It's all the areas kind of around like Main Street up to Lewiston Road. And just kind of along those corridors. And that's all really recode is touching, is really just the center zones. Even the large areas like R1, R2, it's not really doing much with R1 and R2.
So is it going up to 295 on 201 and to 295 on 196?
Yeah, pretty much just that whole like center corridor where there's lots of like traffic and movement, and it's just around, like really just around those main areas.
Oh.
Yeah.
So there's no large changes to no rezoning of R3 or R2 or changing boundaries or anything like that?
No, if anything, currently there's a question about, like currently you have a lot of lots in R1 and R2 that are non-conforming. And so there's just a question of whether or not we should just make, basically you'd up the density, but it would just be upping the density so that all of these units all these lots that are currently non-conforming would just be conforming. So it's not even really increasing the density. It's almost returning the density to what it was when it was first built. Okay. Somewhere along the way, they had actually lowered they had lowered the density.
Oh, yeah. Increased minimum lot size or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And then made a bunch of non-conforming lots, but it's not,
and those aren't grandfathered?
they basically are.
Yeah.
But what happens is that if you need to make any changes to your lots, you can never make it any more non-conforming. So you get kind of like frozen. Like, no.
So I guess I was just thinking about the fact that all that changing that we did to our zoning and our codes is only focused on a really narrow part of the densest area of town, and so maybe some of the recommendations that we can think about would also be relevant outside of the zone where we just recoded.
I also should say on that note that if you're getting at like there are other parts of the code, so because recode is just focusing on that zoning section, I can tell you as soon as recode is done, the planning department is shifting focus to redoing the section 175 and section 191. That's our site plan ordinance and our subdivision ordinance, which is actually really really connected to the natural areas plan. And actually that, that's probably where if we were coming up with recommendations for clustered subdivisions, that would be in 191. Or potentially a section of 225 connected to 191. But either way, those are still have yet to be worked on. Recode is just one small part of code, but really the way that we work is as soon as one part's done, we'll just like move on to the next piece of code that needs to be looked at. It's a constantly evolving thing.
But it's kind of timely if that's the next place you were going
It is.
for us to do this concurrently.
Yep.
Great.
There's a lot of the housing, the legislature has a lot of interesting things going on right now with that stuff.
Yeah, and we're having to like react to
Yeah, like
to
the
it.
one where they're trying to change site law subdivision.
Yes.
Yes,
Well,
I
and-
just
And
saw that one. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
yeah, and it's actually
Because you have delegated authority, we have delegated authority, right?
Yes,
For
we
site
do.
law, yeah, so then how does that,
well, I know for like
that's just been
subdivision,
interesting.
it is, and for subdivision and site law for us, for a. Oh wait, no, site law, slow down, I was mixing that with site plan, but yes, okay, forget what I was gonna say, but yes. I
Yes.
agree still.
It's just interesting, so it's just like we could have ideas, but then each year, it's like all these new things are just happening, and how do you do something that's resilient for that?
Well, I mean, the thing is, the state ordinances, right, those come in like bits and pieces, I find, whereas. Plans like the climate action plan, the natural areas plan, like these are the main plans that are guiding staff when we're looking at code rewrites, because that's what like the people are Topsham or the representatives of Topsham have said that they want, whereas the state code is just like once in a while bits and pieces fall through and we're like, okay, how do we quickly stick that into the code and make it work?
So that the town remains compliant with state law.
Right, exactly, yeah.
We're addressing this section by section. Is there a specific order that might be valuable?
Well, I would say our vision and goals for the update would be pretty
Yeah.
high on the new things to do in January list.
But see, I don't have enough planner in me to understand what our visuals and goals are until we. That just doesn't, I don't understand what
No,
we're,
I think we can just look at what they were 15 years ago and see if we still agree with them, or
Yeah.
if we think that
We
they
need to add
we
some.
should add some, or if there's anything like climate stuff missing in there.
Yeah,
I think the good news is, unlike 15 years ago, we're not starting with a blank slate.
right.
We have a document, so I think I agree. Obviously, we don't need to review the executive summary first, because that's always,
That will hit the
that comes
end.
at the end, even
Yeah.
though it's at the beginning, but I would think, yeah, if we could go through vision and goals and assign at our next meeting and come up with what we think they should be or tweak them, that would be huge. If we could do it in one meeting, it might take more than one, but do you think so, Eric? That would be good?
Well, I guess, would it, because it sounds like we are getting community value revised or redone at some point.
I don't know that. Yeah, I wouldn't
Okay,
like that community values report. I don't know. I think that's for us to decide.
okay, so
If we think that we should go out and re-poll the town, and the good news is nowadays, it's not hoping a bunch of people show up at a meeting. We could do it online,
right,
but we've got to give people some boxes to check.
yeah.
We don't want to just say, give us your, here are what they were 15 years ago. Here's some new thoughts for you. Check as many boxes as you want. So that could be actually a really easy task now than it was
Mhm.
Right,
15 years
because
ago.
you're saying or I read that it was in person.
That was in person.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't there was no social media 15 years ago.
Yeah, I'm thinking we could even like.
Not that anyone was using.
Yeah, like I'm kind of getting ahead because we're not there yet, but I'm like, there's so many ways, like we could have like. A form, because we did this for Recode, and then you just basically have the the QR code out everywhere.
Yeah, I saw it was at the Androscoggin River Walk. They get a little QR code out
Yeah.
what there's.
No, that's true.
Put them at different parts.
Oh, sure.
Anyone who comes into town, we can have them at the front desk, who can be like, oh, before you leave, take this survey if you'd like,
Yeah.
we can downstairs, we can pass them out to people that come by. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something you could start and have ongoing for a year or more.
Actually, yeah, we could collect feedback. We could use some of this time, like we could think of if we want to start collecting certain types of feedback. Beforehand, and
That's kind of why I asked. I mean, I'm new here, so I guess the question is, would the vision and goals from the community's input standpoint change in that 15 years? I assume it would. And are we
I think so.
establishing that vision and goal for the, I guess it doesn't make sense for it to be the first meeting to talk about that, but yeah.
You're thinking about how public input
Yeah,
will
right,
impact
yeah.
our
Vision
vision and goals.
Yep.
From what I understand, the way that it was done originally. All of the different sort of layers of information that we have about the town's natural area and open space was weighted in this movements at the end. And community values was one of the weights, basically. So, I don't think we'd have to have like public input in order to start the process of our update with our vision and goals, but there may be things that come out of that public input later that we need to add to the process or
Yeah,
add.
and that
to
makes
the
sense.
goals.
Yeah.
Establishing that's good.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think ideally you would have electronic engagement with the public early and often, but I think some people still function better in person.
Mhm.
So I think there still needs to be a face-to-face interaction.
Yeah.
And we not, completely up with that. That's a really critical component, though it's a lot more. work.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, you don't want to miss there's also a large constituency of people who,
Won't use
the
the.
They
QR
won't
codes,
engage.
the internet, yeah, and you want to make
Right.
sure that they're able to participate
Yeah.
as well.
I think like the big public outreach things, I'm envisioning a consultant helping us with.
Yeah.
Surveys or QR codes are definitely something that we could do as a committee. Just to start getting some input, so I think it's probably gonna be a mix, right?
One, so we knew, I think the vision and goals for the 2010 plan were based on. Well, obviously, we worked to develop those, but there was feedback from a comp plan. That said, we need to develop this for the following reasons, so that I thought set the baseline. What's the 2019 comp plan, is that what it was?
Yep.
Recommended this update, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
Did it get, and I guess we would want to look at that, what did that say about what the purpose of this update is? We obviously want to make sure we cover that.
Mhm.
And then look at what we did 15 years ago and figure out, what has changed. But I agree, getting some, input and what you said about maybe tweaking that as we get community input on stuff. Yes, we're not elected, we're assigned our post, we're selected by the select board to be here, but we're not necessarily representative of the 9,500 or however many people we have in Topsham, so.
Is it under 10,000?
Is it over 10? I'm not sure if we're over
Nope,
10.
not over 10 yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. I think it's like. Maybe it would just be upper eights,
Upper age stuff.
yeah. 88, 8900.
But I can guarantee that some of the thoughts about what Topsham should be or become has probably changed over the past 15 years. It's just people have moved on, new housing, new people have moved in. Not necessarily people that have always lived in Topsham. There's still a lot of people that have lived here that feel very strongly. There's other people that, something different. So I think
I think that'll
we're gonna have
also
to get some public input for sure.
And that'll actually be probably one of the interesting things in this plan. There's a section, it's actually in the executive part, but it's like for the time period between 2001 and 2007, like, here's what happened, here's what we saw.
Yeah.
Like, it'll be interesting to be like, okay, from 2007 to 2025, like, there's what we saw online.
Yeah.
What happened? Yeah.
There was a ton of public outreach and feedback in the comp plan though. So I think it's really good for us to remember that that's like a great place to get
Yes.
more up-to-date info than the original 2010 plan. Like even though it's now gonna be
Right.
6 years later. We can use the sort of goals or vision in the comp plan as. We can look through that when we're making our goals for this natural areas plan and make sure that we're referring to it because it's a more recent, sort of test of the pulse of it.
Is that something we could start with next meeting is?
I think that's a good idea.
What's our,
Like vision and goals, and we'll also look in the comp plan for things that would. That we can combine into this.
Is action.
We have in our Google Drive, I remember the CPIC committee had like a Excel file of the things that were in the comp plan that TCC was sort of assigned to, or like was part of our purview, so I'll get that out to folks before our next meeting.
Yeah, and because I was actually looking at it today. And actually towards the end of the comp plan, there's a whole. There are different sections and it's a, yeah, it's inventory and it's like really related, like here we have framework for conservation, preservation and growth, right? So our natural areas plan like should be based on the information, like this is where we should start. And then there's another. Yeah, and then like here was the conservation, and I think I'm pretty sure this is directly influenced from the natural areas
it is.
plan here,
Yeah.
this map. And then what other things? There were some other ones. I think it was farther down. I'll have to find it later. If I had it up, I well, you guys too, but yeah, there's a whole section of like inventory that has some really good data that we should definitely start with.
And we should make sure our CPIC liaison is with us that meeting, I think. Since they're. They have their mind on the implementation of the comp plan. I have this. Comp plan implementation matrix. That includes. Like a section of the comp plan, the strategy that was recommended, and then the lead groups in the town. And we have. There are 9 of them, 10. There are maybe a dozen of them that have us as the lead. And then another dozen or so that has us as like a secondary support team. So reading through that, I think would be useful before.
is that in,
It's in our Google Drive. I'll send the link.
is that in this? The comp plan?
It's the strategy matrix. Yeah, it's that,
The lead and then the support.
exactly. And so I have just like I have this in Excel form that has highlighted the ones that we were called out for lead and support.
Let's.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah, lots of TCC here.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, access to nature and open space.
Yeah, yep. So, I think this is a good place for us to leave it for today. With our goal of like splitting up the table of contents and the updating over the next maybe 4 months. And the first thing that we'll work on are the vision and goals, and we'll tie in the strategies recommended in the comp plan. Because that It's what the town was sort of having us focus on. That sound like a good start?
Yep. This was a good start.
All right, we're in it. I mean, if all else fails and we get no money, we can at least go through and update the natural areas plan sections based on what we know now.
Yep.
And I think that would be beneficial.
Yep.
Okay, I went to the select board and gave my update at the October 16th meeting. You all had seen the update, the annual report update. And we had all approved it, so basically I turned that into the select board and then showed up and they asked me some questions.
Anything substantive
Um,
stumped you?
no,
Of course, that was the old select board, right?
it was the old select board, I don't think so, they were asking us. I'm trying to remember, there was some question about like stream. Oh, if we would be interested in like participating in. Thinking about the town, oh gosh, it's been so long ago. Let me see if I have that. Oh, I do it now.
I did not take notes, I don't remember.
Hang on, let me look at my notes.
Rare plants along the CMP corridor.
That was it.
Not
That's right.
local, but we can work on.
Oh, that and possible cleanups along the CMP corridors. Like trash. Like, would we be involved in anything that had to do with that?
Right, like how
And
much could you guys do with, like with CMP?
Right, and
First step.
identifying rare threatened and endangered species in the wetlands along the corridors and. We had talked about that kind of being like part of the state permitting process and not.
Yeah, it's not really in
Not
our.
really our thing.
Yeah, it's not really in our jurisdiction,
That was the biggest question, I believe.
Alright.
but we can always. Work in partnership, right?
Oh,
If
of
we
course.
notice something in CMP, the Conservation Commission, reach out and say, hey,
Yeah,
let's work together to help solve this.
that was the biggest question.
Yeah. That was my only note.
So that was fine. Audie went to the Brunswick Tree Committee meeting.
Oh, I just listened in, I didn't actually go to it. But
But
it
you
was-
listened in,
Yes,
that was their October meeting?
yeah,
No,
it was pretty
or
interesting.
September, September
September.
23rd, I think.
Yes, because it was right before the meeting that then I missed for us.
Right before October 6th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was interesting. They've got some interesting, they're thinking of, like ordinances that are putting tree count, so if people come in and cut all the trees, there's a certain like dollar amount per tree. Because they've had a bunch of developments that have come in and basically clear cut mature forests and they want to halt that pretty strongly. So that was really interesting, I thought. And I felt like we don't necessarily haven't seen that concern. And they talk a lot about their city forester, arborist comes and he like Sarah and he was talking about they have a whole replanting program for it's like chestnuts or something that or
Oh, wow.
the native, yeah, the growing they get native stock and they have a nursery and
They have a tree
grow-
nursery.
They have a tree nursery and they grow it so that with eyes to when they have trees that have to be cut down or they lose trees, they have the stock that are healthy and big so they can replant them and yeah, that was really interesting.
Not
So-
just for chestnut, but for.
Yes,
other
for
trees.
native, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna.
Not just for
Chestnut,
chestnut,
that-
sorry.
Where's this
They-
nursery? I don't know where they have it. I know that they plant the chestnuts in the town commons,
Yeah.
but I don't know where the native tree nursery is.
We do have a chestnut here on a municipal campus. Do you guys know anything about it or why? Okay, I just wondered if maybe
Like on this property?
yeah, it's.
Well, probably because it was, I mean,
Yeah, we received or something. I seem to have some foggy memory of that.
Yeah, I just noticed that, when I started working here, I was like, oh, I have an American chestnut here. Huh.
Cool.
but I did think they, it was very interesting to listen to that. I was like, oh, this is a committee that I can understand. With the more like focused, but yeah, so I thought reaching out to them or actually like going in person and seeing a little more what they do might be useful if we indeed are going to try to have that sort of committee. I thought it was useful listening in.
So their tree committee is a 6-person committee and then. It's staffed by Dennis Wilson, who's the town arborist. But at their November meeting, they voted to dissolve the tree committee and have it. Be
Just under the arborist.
absorbed by the Conservation Commission like we did.
Like we did.
Oh.
Oh, oh.
So they're going to.
So I watched one of the last ones.
Yeah, I think they're going to increase the size of their conservation commission by 2 that are the 2 tree committee members that'll be part of the
Mhm.
commission, so I think they're not, I don't think they're gonna lose their focus of everything that's going on with trees in Brunswick, but it seems like they're shifting it a little bit to be not a standalone.
Brunswick Conservation Commission did not go to.
I know, they weren't at the NEAC meetings.
Yeah.
Which is funny,
Doesn't
because
get any
it's in
easier.
Brunswick. Um,
Or if they did, they left early before they had to give their update.
I don't think so.
I don't think
Anybody
so.
was there.
I think we have enough on our plate with the natural areas as far as tree stuff.
But I,
No, no.
just like keeping in mind what they're doing is.
Oh, no, that's fine. And again, I was the one that had kind of, when I first volunteered for this committee, I actually reached out about the tree committee.
Right,
Cause like you, I said, that's some nice, like little bite-sized chunk that I know about trees. But it's part of this committee. As far as the nursery stuff you mentioned, I know at one point Ed Karen out at the solid waste facility had a bunch of trees that he had grown and, I don't know where that stands right now, but, if you're ever out to the transfer station, you can ask him and
On the
if
property
we ever
there.
need to, yeah, I think there was trees. I think it might be now where they have, the skills, not the pump track. But behind that, as part of the Topsham trails, the biking trails, they have some teeter totters and features. I think it might have been there, but I'm not sure. But anyways, he had grown, or maybe it's right adjacent to it. There was just trees that were growing with a thought that, if you ever needed a tree or replant a tree or something like that, town could dig one up and go put it on the municipal campus or something like that. It was some one of Eddie's little projects or stuff that he had in, as from the pollinator.
I was gonna say that sounds.
He loves doing that sort of stuff. So, I mean, if we ever wanted to do anything with acquiring trees through a grant and planting them and letting them grow and nurturing them and then planting them here, there, and wherever, as ash trees die or something, we need to
Yeah.
find some other tree to plant, that's resilient. But anyways,
Yes,
that's food for thought for another day, but
I mean, I
I'm
would
sure
second
he would, Ed would love to support that. He's done so much out there with the trails, with Pollinator Park, with just everything out there. You know, he would totally support that, the ponds and stocking of the ponds out there, so.
And, yeah, he loves plants and using any extra land on the transfer station to do fun projects and things, so.
Oh, yeah.
The best way for us to start, like, if you ever need a little land to like do something, you can always just check in, you know, the worst
Oh,
you can
yeah.
do is say no, but.
Yeah, he probably won't.
Yeah.
Thanks for going,
Yes.
or dialing in.
Listening, yeah.
And then, we did our invasive species removal at Head Tide Park. That was fun. Thank
Yeah.
Everybody for coming.
Yeah.
So we did,
Sorry, missed it. Sorry.
we got a lot clipped in a couple of hours.
2 hours, we
Yeah.
beat back the barberries.
It's my first year anniversary, so.
Uh-huh.
That's
That's-
romantic clipping of invasives?
Cool.
I enjoyed whoever it was, the lady that was ripping up instead of just cutting them off, she was ripping them up and hanging them off tree branches so they would actually die rather than just, coming back, so.
That's Danielle.
Uh-huh.
She was into it.
Oh, yeah.
Great. Public comment or questions is kind of, we can skip it because there's no additional public. So our next meeting is scheduled for January 5th. Which we change, I think. Did we change those dates? No,
Still have that on my calendar.
it's the first Monday of November or January, regular day. We were gonna invite Mark to come, Josh, is that
Yes.
is that confirmed?
Check that email. I think that's the one that he confirmed.
Cause he couldn't come to this one, so.
Yes, because he is out. I can confirm that for you. Okay, I'll just make a note and I will, stay. But I'm pretty sure that January was the.
I think so too, but let's just double check.
Yep.
So at our next meeting, we will meet with Mark, unless he can't come, to finally talk about the committee policy. And then we will, work on visions and goals. So homework would be to read that section of the original natural areas plan. And, to look over the comp plan
Strategy.
strategies that I'll send you the link to the Excel file.
Did you want to reach out to Pam to attend the January meeting? Our CPIC liaison?
Yes.
Pam Balfour.
Pam Balfour, yeah. Do I have her email? I don't know. I'll double check.
You must have Pam's contact.
Okay,
Yes.
You do? Do you?
what?
You have Pam's email?
I'm
Or you'll check.
not sure. I will check. Do you have it?
I do.
Can you just send it to me? Thanks. Okey dokey.
Motion to adjourn?
Pam, if you're watching, come to our chambers. All right, motion to adjourn. I will make it. Chris will second it. All in favor? All right.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody.